Hey, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Transformation Leaders Podcast. My name is David Soden. I'm joined by my partner in crime, as usual, Sean Ennis. And today we've got a whole new approach that we want to take since it's the new year. And today we want to talk about kind of a new us, a new you, what you're doing in your business, and maybe a different approach because AI has not only changed, but we also need to start thinking in lots of new and interesting ways, specifically around or the focus around technical debt. And I think Sean has put together a absolutely fantastic presentation for us today. So let's dig into it. Sean, if you're ready, let's kick this off and talk about what you got.
Yeah, so technical debt is one of the key reasons why digital transformation fails, right? It is the quicksand that you get into when you're trying to fix things. The world is always in motion, and technology is advancing far and faster than what your business operational capabilities are. It's always the case. You're going to launch a new product, and while you're launching it, somebody's going to come up with something different. It happens. When you build everything at the edge, then all of a sudden cloud native comes out, and how do you deal with that? So it's always a problem, but AI is offering a lot more opportunities than ever before to solve this problem. So what I am suggesting is that you take a look to these ideas. This is a strategic approach on how to deal with technical debt. And thanks, a shout out to AI for helping create this presentation because it looks fantastic. So starting with that, let's move on and talk about the problem. So there's this gravitational pull that you have when you make a product or have a digital footprint at all. You invest in certain technologies, and those are technologies that are going to change. So what happens is you end up getting married to technology that changes so radically that you are losing traction, you're being inefficient, simply because the cost of change is too high. And so what happens is that everybody gets into firefighting mode, right? And that's the problem with this, is that people cannot get that innovation work done because they're spending all their time satisfying the mistakes, or maybe it's not even a mistake, it's just the difference of technology from now and then, paying the penalty for the past. So with AI, you have all these new capabilities of agentics that allows you to move from one to another. And there, these different technology changes are something that is going to affect you. So this is becoming a bigger problem, not a smaller one. Now, the idea is to move on and get yourself a process by which you can address the technical debt, and in such a way that you have an evergreen process of dealing with debt as it occurs. And AI is really good to do that. And what I'm recommending is this concept of focusing on the technical wealth, right? What do you have from a process flow that will help drive future adoption of infrastructure underneath? And the good news is that AI can certainly do that. So let me go to the next. So really high level technology debt is that high interest predatory loan that makes you a slave to the past, right? At the end, or I think up at the top left, is there's a QR code I want to call out. You could actually read the white paper that I put together on this, which explains it in a lot more detail. But this is the issue that you have, that technology debt. Those payments are due monthly. You have a group of people who are working with inefficient process, expensive infrastructure, and technology that you do not want to be on, but the cost of change is too high. Does this make sense, David?
Yeah, it does. And I think, if people haven't realized this or not, what Sean is illustrating here with all the different things that are being exposed, if you have been kicking the can down the road in your business for years and you're trying to implement or accelerate AI at some level, this whole transformation for you is going, the skeletons are going to fall out of the closet where they've been buried and hidden. And, this is the frustration, the pain that a lot of us are feeling as we implement it, as we have to deal with senior management. If you're senior management trying to come to terms, maybe with shareholders, stakeholders, whoever, and it's like drinking from the fire hose, and it just seems like there's no end in sight. But there definitely is an end, and there is a good approach. And Sean's outlined a lot of kind of, as we get through this, a little bit more on how definitely that can happen. But I would just highly encourage a lot of you that you can actually use AI itself to dig you out of some of these holes by doing the research, helping you migrate from point A to point B, consolidate systems. It makes great work of that. We've talked about this in past shows too. So if you just now tuning in, check out our website. We got a bunch of previous shows where we talked about a lot of this stuff. This is essentially the culmination of everything that fell out of 2025 and how you should approach 2026. And as Sean said, the QR code at the top is right now for the white paper. And if you would like to download this presentation for yourself, I'm going to switch out the QR code right now. And this will allow you to download this presentation. I'll mention this again in closing, so you guys will have another opportunity to grab those 2 QR codes. We'll leave it here on the presentation so that if anytime you want to download it, just go ahead and scan that QR code now.
So hopefully you understand a little bit about the concept of technical debt. Now let's talk, unfortunately, what your estate looks like. And you may need a hat and a whip to talk about the archaeology problem that you have for this, for your technical debt. Many people still have mainframes, right? They have very rigid foundations that they have to work around. They're going to have monolithic software deployments and infrastructure. They're going to have failed or semi-failed lift and shift cloud work that they have done. Again, this is the skeletons in the closet, or in this case, these are the skeletons in the ground that if you want to get down to the bedrock, you're going to have to dig through. And this is the problem that is causing the firefighting that we experience. I know I've heard this so many times. We need to get out of firefighting mode. We need to get out of firefighting mode. I've been in this industry, unfortunately, for going on 30 years, right? And I've heard the same thing. We need to stop being firefighters. Now, the risk here is that people say, hey, AI environments are just too complex to manage. Well, it's complex to manage because look at the foundations that you've built on. People talk about, hey, I need to redo all my data, right? Well, again, this is the actual root of that problem. It isn't your data systems. It is the 50 layers that your data systems are built on. And getting to that bedrock is a painful process. Now, the AI unlock that we've talked about back in 2024 was all about the Copilot. And now we're talking about everything being agentic. And these are great technologies to be able to allow you to get to the bedrock and transform quickly. But more importantly, these are the 2 things that I implore you to think about if you're going to address your technical debt moving forward. And that is, you got to have the universal safety net. You got to have automated test generation, and you need to have the ability to simulate your migrations and data flowing in and out. Because unless you have that, you will not be prepared for the onslaught of change that you're going to see. So, David, what do you think about this?
Yeah, I think a lot of the problems that people are going to have, if you're talking about your last slide and the agentics, is how to apply this to a monolithic architecture, or how do I tap it into those skeletons that are still beneath the ground or the surface area. And that's kind of the homework, right? And this is kind of what I was alluding to earlier, in that a lot of times I think the first thing you would need to do to solve that, are, to try to give you some actionable consultation, I would think, create an inventory of all of those assets. In that previous slide, it was more delineated by time, but you need to create an inventory, not an excessive inventory, but high level as to what are the main core systems that are there, and categorically or within the data, what is stored, what is its purpose, what role does it figure out? Because the next exercise after you do all of that is to try to attribute a percentage of value to work streams within your business, because agentics, you can see the mesh. It's anything and everything all at the same time, and it can dynamically pivot. And so if you don't know where you're at to get a good baseline understanding of what systems do what and what percentage of the whole, and more importantly, within each of the work streams, what role does it play and to what percentage there, you won't know how to prioritize what to decommission, what to consolidate. So start there and think of things in that way. It's not necessarily agentic advice. This is just age-old advice that I've been giving for years and years and years, as you try to come up with something, whatever the next flavor of the week is with regard to technology. But it's always 3 steps back, 1 step forward. And I think we're going to see the same here. And it's going to be a little bit more painful because things are moving very, very fast. And that's just going to add fire or fuel to the fire.
Yep. So, we started by talking about the battleground, right? What's the point of the war, right? Tech debt. We talked about, here are some tactical strategies, right? This is all about the weapons that you have to attack this problem. Let's start talking about the strategy to solving this problem and getting out from underneath the firefighting. So it is this triple mandate, right? So you need efficiency, because you need to lower that cost of innovation. This buys you time. The more time you have, the more mistakes you can make. So efficiency, and getting more efficiency through cloud, right-sizing and delayering the middleware that you have, all of this is going to buy you more time and make it easier to do a change. The second is your resilience. You're going to deploy technology that's not going to be worth much in the future. This is just the game that we are in, right? But if you have resilience, even if it is not necessarily efficient, it is resilient so that you can turn your back on it. It's not going to be one of your top 5 problems. When you build resilient things, you're going to get trust from the enterprise. You're going to get trust from your customers. So that's important. Now, my favorite and most people's favorite is always velocity, right? Taking an idea and bringing it to reality as quickly as possible. This continuous modernization is what we all want to achieve, but you will not have the next necessary fuel to be able to do it without the other 2 pieces. So efficiency buys time, resilience buys trust, and velocity gets you the market where you want to be. If you ignore one of these or multiple of these, it's going to be harder to do your job. And a lot of people will go through and focus totally on efficiency and then they have no customers left, or nobody thinks they have answers to the enterprise's problem. So what happens is they go out and they buy something else. Somebody takes your job. If all you do is velocity, nobody will trust you. You're a flash in the pan. And resilience is great, but it is wasted effort after a certain point. What is the difference between 4 nines and 3 nines? For most people, they just can't tell the difference. So this is really the strategy to win the war of technical debt, is balancing these 3 approaches.
Yep, I think everything you just said is spot on. The only thing I'll just add is this actually dovetails exactly into what I was saying earlier, because the efficiency part in getting the baseline information is really a good start to make all of this actionable. But yeah, no, totally agree.
So let's talk about the change that you need to embrace first. And this one is difficult for me. And David, maybe you're on the same boat, but I love being called the builder, right? I want to build things. And a builder focuses sometimes on the wrong things. We need to embrace the idea of being an orchestrator of change. We don't build things, we orchestrate change. Because some days, building a better process, building a better this, you're asking for change, but you're not helping the business or your customers digest the change. You're creating new problems when you're a builder, problems that other people have to solve. And when you're saying, hey, Sean, I'm building solutions to problems, well, you're still creating change. And for most people, change is a problem. So, creating environments where you're orchestrating the change in a safe to fail environment so that you can prove everything out before it's worth the impact that you're trying to do to the user base. Right? This is kind of what I tell people all the time. Focus on quick wins. Well, how do you start, right? I gave you the strategy, but you can't boil the ocean. You need to start someplace that is going to enable that acceleration that you want, that velocity and efficiency and resilience. These are some of the areas where it makes sense to start. Number 1, AI automated testing. If you're not using AI to automate your testing, this is so easy to achieve. Yeah. Number 2, using AI to look at your infrastructure footprint and tell you where you're wasting cloud spend. Enormous money that you can find to fund your future functionality. And with fewer zombie assets that you need to manage, it means that you have fewer problems that can happen, right? Less, if you take down all the buildings that no one's living in, they can't catch fire, right? Makes sense. Documentation. So important. Being able to know what to do, when to do it, and figuring out before problems happen what you should do. Agentics are really good at creating documentation and workflows. Let them do it, right? Maybe you're not automating all those workflows, but you have thought about them beforehand and they're well documented and people know exactly what to do when a problem happens. Being able to wrap around your APIs so that perhaps, taking your APIs and making an MCP server on top of them, right? So that they are AI ready. Very basic things, but what these are all about is enabling that change, getting down to the bedrock and making it available so that AI can accelerate you. Looking at what is driving your sovereignty of your data. This is a huge problem that people have, is compliance. Looking at your compliance, having AI check your compliance for you. And do you know how many people lose money based upon paying for compliance after the fact, either in lost revenue or unexpected expenses? David, here's 6 of them. What are your thoughts?
I'm gravitating towards agentic documentation. It's the easiest, quickest way to turn AI loose on discovering a lot of information. A lot of enterprises have IT discovery tools already in place for managing deployments, managing systems, or something like Splunk, where you're taking in data from platforms and systems. And again, kind of going back a little bit to what I was saying earlier, even without that, just knowing those systems, those logging tools, you can turn AI loose on something by either pointing it to the manufacturer's documentation, then pointing it to the database or the underlying data, and then describing something. If you go back to, this goes back to what Sean had on the previous slide, I think is on slide 7. You mind if I rewind just a second here?
Certainly.
That's where this shift in 2025 was happening due to agentics. That was the driver, not only for the agentic orchestration, but orchestration of humans in the business. And so this is where these 6 steps come in. But I gravitate personally towards the agentic documentation because this is paramount, because all decisions that you're going to make downstream. Now, don't go overboard. Again, Sean said, don't boil the ocean. And this is so true with the documentation. Flesh out the documentation from an outline. And then depending specifically on what you're orchestrating to or with or something specific, then go and flesh it out in more detail. And keep versions of it, of the before and the after. So for example, I said do an outline. Let's just say you approach a particular problem with your ERP system that drives finance. And that's the lens or the perspective from which you're going to do this documentation. Take your outline, focus on the orchestration of that. That's like version 1/finance. Then go back to the baseline, stripped out, nice and clean version of your outline. Tackle the next problem. It could be HR hiring or HR process or whatever the case may be. So now you have 2 sets. And you can see where this goes as you go department to department, system to system. Systematically work through that, because AI has this really cool and keen ability to find correlations within the data. And by having these versions, snapshot versions, asking something like Claude Code or even Open Code, which is open source free now, does a pretty good job, almost as good as Claude Code. But in any event, these tools will start to do correlational analysis to help you gain insights to things that are not of the mundane or not of the typical. And that's what you need. You need a fresh set of eyes. This allows you to move yourself forward without hiring high paid, expensive consultants. Not to say that they're still not needed, but you'll at least be able to have those engagements, maybe in take a quarter of their billable hours off of that and fast track where you need to be. But the point is, you can do a lot of this stuff to help prepare. And in some cases, if you're small enough and don't have that much technical debt that you're dealing with, and you've already done a fantastic job, but you're looking to button things up, then this is much lighter work. Whoops, sorry. You might have saved yourself a whole bunch of additional work that is unnecessary because you've already tackled it before. But yeah, using all of that, I don't know. To me, it all starts with the agentic documentation. And then those other 5 blocks, to me, just seems like they've got a good place and a test. They fall into place with more specificity as you drill into what maybe that is that you're orchestrating at that time.
Yeah. So, starting small and building large, getting your building blocks, having AI be your janitor is really how to start. But how do you know you're making progress? With any strategy, you need metrics, right? So what I'm recommending is creating some new KPIs, KQIs for digital transformation so that you can realize how much technical wealth you're generating. So number one is very simple. Look at how much effort and money is being spent maintaining your infrastructure or growing it, right? This is the innovation ratio. Most people that I hear, they're on 80%, 90% maintenance, right? This is going to tell you if what you're doing is helping you or hurting you. And then when you see these numbers, you could see, okay, we're spending time here, we're spending time there, and you can create your quick wins. If 10% of your effort is because you're doing database migrations, well, maybe that's some of the area that you need to spend on to automate, right? And so that you can shift focusing on future stuff instead of maintenance. The mean time to modernize. So you pick an application, a business service, a component, and say, how long does it take us to modernize? How much effort does it take to build these things, to do new work? And it should reduce over time. How much efficiency are you gaining, right? Year over year, when you generate new outcomes, how hard is it to generate those outcomes, right? It should get easier and easier if you are adopting a lot of these AI strategies that we're talking about, right? AI based documentation, AI API wrappers, all of these should allow you to create outcomes faster and faster and faster, and understanding your year over year cost per outcome. Now, this is the most important thing. You need to understand how long it takes before you implement a change in your environment to people are actually taking advantage of those changes, right? This is the most important thing. You need to make things as change neutral as possible and make it so that whatever the changes are, people will gravitate to that change, making it easier for staff to want to accept change. A lot of times people have problems with transformation because their staff are actively fighting it. We had, what was it, a month ago, David? We had a wonderful group of people on that's all they do is they help people absorb change. And rightfully so, because you could build the best technology, the best solutions, the best processes. If your people refuse to use them, you've wasted a lot of time and effort.
Yeah, the one thing I'll encourage folks to keep in mind as you go through and look at new KPIs to create and make sure that you begin with the end in mind. Meaning, whatever it is that you're wanting to derive from your KPI, make sure the underlying data is there to produce the analysis. And if not, there's your opportunity to, again, 2 steps back, 1 step forward, make sure that you're capturing that from wherever the source needs to be and see if there's some way to either extrapolate the data from existing data. So for example, if you needed a name, this is really stupid, but I'll just give it because I know everybody will gravitate to understanding it. If you needed a full name column in your database and all you have is a first name and a last name, you can run a geeky programmatic thing called concatenate, and you can bring the two together. So you can take existing information to create new virtual information. And so that's like an easy way, right? Old school and traditional. But the flip side, what if you don't have any way to extrapolate on that? Well, that's where AI comes in. AI might be able to help you guesstimate or estimate where or how or what that should be. With, you're going to have to treat that with, kind of a little bit of caution, because, it's essentially, or could be, hallucinated figures or numbers that comes from there. But more importantly, then you have an opportunity to go back into the system and update it to make sure you're capturing that data. Then you don't have to create some hallucinated version. You can just capture it from the onset. But in any event, as you're going through your KPIs and doing all of that, just make sure that you again, begin with the end in mind, because this will help you identify the holes and the gaps.
Yeah. So, the choice is really yours, right? We all have been part of organizations, and we know what the standard of today is, right? Doing one-off projects. Those one-off projects add technical debt, right? You end up with reactive firefighting, or what happens is people shrug and then you just externalize it. You have rip and replace. You have high complexity. This is what the standard of the day is. And I don't care if you're in an enterprise, you're in a telco, you're in a software company, a tech company that sells things, or if you're just in retail and you're providing a user experience. It's the same. There's a cost to doing technology. And you could go that way, or you can start by focusing on self-optimizing as you go. Letting AI do the janitorial work, right? All the stuff that, I tell people all the time, you are two things. You have a job that pays the bills, gets the groceries every week, and then you have a career that is something you enjoy doing. And the two are not always the same. And based upon whatever role you're on, there is a percentage of your job that you would rather have AI do. Every role has that. And what I recommend is focus on that area with AI. Let AI do the work that it does and be able to have the human sit above it and do better things. Let AI be the janitor. And then what you want is to foster an environment where change is acceptable and even look forward to. There's excitement around change. And that all depends upon how you're delivering the value you are to the organization, to your customers. Now, in the basics, focusing a quarter on being able to reduce the footprint and introducing AI to do more of the janitorial things, doing audit and zombie reclamation. You could pull in money. You don't need to cut heads. You could find money by cutting cloud costs. You could pay for AI by using AI to find out the areas that you're not getting any business value from. So instead of cutting heads to pay for AI, you can have AI find the spend within your pre-existing budget. Start with a modernization process. pick the underlying and start getting value, right? Pull in and start doing more proof of concepts and more innovation in the second quarter. And then start your refactoring and being able to do bigger and bigger things with AI as your people get comfortable in what value AI provides. It is not a cure-all. AI does not solve all your problems. What it does is it solves about 80% of your problems, and then a smart human is still needed to make sure that that change is a positive one. Anybody can go on to Claude Code and say, build this software, and you have it, and there you go. Well, there's no process to use it. The users are not ready to consume it. You don't even know if it solves the business problem. So again, digital transformation is not AI. It's digital transformation with AI. And I'll finish with this. The plow is moving. You could either be the one to steer it or be the one it's moving, right? It's really up to you. And that's where my recommendations, what I tell people how to solve their technical debt in 2026. David?
Excellent. So all great advice. Hope everybody enjoyed what you guys learned here today. Again, the QR code is there right now for you to download this PPTX or PowerPoint that Sean just took us through. So go ahead and scan that. In just a second, I'm going to flip the code, give you an opportunity to download the white paper as well. And we're going to show that now. So this is now the QR code for the white paper. And if you, for whatever reason, are having problems with downloading the white paper, you can go to the transformationleaderspodcast.com. The URL is at the bottom of your screen there on the lower left. And you can send us an email. It'll get both Sean and I in one fell swoop, and we'll be more than happy to help guide you there. Otherwise, there's links to each of us to our LinkedIn profile. And so you can catch us there and IM us or message us one-on-one there as well. We are here every Wednesday, 12 o'clock, noon Eastern Standard Time. And that's it for today's show. We'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.
Thanks, David.